Hey guys, welcome to this new video tutorial. Today I'm going to show you and explain you what is compression in a few words. So and how compression works. So here I have a compressor. This is the default preset compressor. I have in my Ableton Live, and so at first you can see that there's this makeup button turned on, and I just want to let you know that you want to have this button activated only in, mostly in buses, maybe in groups of channels, but not really in single channels. What this does is basically just expands the volume without clipping, so it's acting more like a limiter. Yeah, so we don't really need that now, so we just turn it off. And then now on the left here we can see three knobs, and they are respectively ratio, attack, and release. So these three controls here, you are going to find these controls on every single compressor you can possibly imagine, software or hardware. Every single compressor has these three controls. So let's start off by explaining what is the ratio. So the ratio is basically the amount of compression you're giving to a particular sound. So how much the compressor is acting strong on the channel, right, and on the sample, or anyway on the sound which is playing on the channel. And so yeah, if you have it turned all the way down, so 1 to 1 is basically means that the compressor is doing absolutely nothing. So it's nothing is going on, just pure dry signal. It's not doing anything at all. But as soon as more as you turn it up, like two, for example, 2 to 1 is the basically the default setting, and it's a pretty settled amount, and good to start with. And the more you increase this control, the harder is going to compress the sound. So let me show you concretely what I mean. So I have this pretty good sound that I think it's pretty good, right? And I'm going to turn it on, and I'm going to raise the ratio up. And of course, now you can't hear anything. You wonder, why is he turning it up and I can't hear anything? Well, this is basically because I have the threshold set to 0 dB. I have to set, the threshold, which is the threshold control is basically setting a limit where, you can see a meter bar here. And as soon as the meter reaches a certain amount of level, of intensity, if it goes above this threshold, it's going to start compressing. So because there's nothing, that there's not, because the sample it's not going beyond 0 dB, it's basically doing nothing. So that's why you can't hear anything as soon as I raise the ratio up. But if I set a lower threshold, you are going to start hearing some things. So let me set this to 2 to 1, and let's play it. You can hear how if I go extreme with the threshold and I raise the ratio up, you can really hear what the ratio is doing and how harder it's getting. So if I go extreme with the threshold, like close to minus infinite dB, and I raise the threshold from 2 to 1 to infinite to 1, it's really going to be hearable. I mean, if you don't really have headphones or a good set of speakers, it's so low that you can't really hear. But you've got to really listen to this with headphones, with a good quality of headphones, or anyway, like anything like that. So that's what ratio is all about, really. And yeah, it's the amount and the hardness of the compressor that it's going to be. So the attack instead is the time that it's going to take for the sound to come in the compressor and to be affected by the compressor. So that is the amount of the time. So for example, here we have by default 2 milliseconds. That means that the sound first comes in and then after 2 milliseconds it gets compressed. But the first 2 milliseconds don't get yeah, compressed. And you can really play around with this. You can have a very fast attack, like a 0.01 millisecond up to, in this case, 1 second. So yeah, I'm going to show you basically what this does. I mean, over here you can have your gain reduction over time, and you can see the graph, and I mean, you can see some kind of curve of attack when it's over time, and as soon as I'm going to adjust the attack time here, you can see that the shape will kind of change over time from the beginning. And of course, as more as I put the attack time upper, right, you can see that the peaks over here are reducing because actually it's taking more time to be compressed, of course, right? So if instead I go the other way, I lower down, it's going to be more, right, more hard because it's actually being triggered faster. You can really see how the graph changes, right? That's it. And the release knob instead, it's the amount of time that is taking to release the compression, right? So from the moment it gets compressed, the sound, it's going to take, in this case, 50 milliseconds, to be released in the compression process. So again, see the graph and see what I mean. See, it's really taking a long time to release, right? Even after the sound is finished, because it's taking 2 seconds and 38 milliseconds to really release the compression amount. I don't know if you know what I mean, right? So that's basically it. And yeah, of course, you have then your knee, which is the basically the curve. It's the knee control. It's not so important, but sometimes you may want to need that because it's basically setting up it's dictating the hardness of the curve of the compression, but it's not really all that important, really. It's something that you're probably not even going to yeah, to be using all that much. Yes, and so yeah, I'm just going to let you hear in in few examples what is compression on the sound with and without, so you can make a comparison with the completely dry signal and with the completely wet signal. So you can learn and understand why today we use compression in making music, and you know why is it so important? Because it's basically uh, kind of shaping the sound and cleaning up the muddiness. I mean, together with an EQ, it can maybe help in reducing some muddiness maybe on the basses, and you can kind of limit clipping and some elements that may be intersample clipping, right? So that's it. And so, yeah, I'm going to play you now this sound again with compression and without compression. So I can even maybe put this at three to one ratio with little less threshold, and maybe the attack around 6.6.06 milliseconds and release around 190 milliseconds. So yeah, let me just play around with it. Oh, also, just a recommendation, the grain reduction, usually you want to have just a very slight amount. You don't want to really overdo with it, because, it's not always a good thing to just overdo. You may need to overdo sometimes, but it's not always a good idea. So just, yeah, I'm not going to go through compression techniques today, but just the basic concept of what compression is. So that's what the purpose of the video is. So now without. So you can really hear that the sound is basically taking a slight different character. It's not really too crazy, but it's slightly changing. It's assuming a different, a smoother character. So that's it. Again, and also there's another compressor I got, which is the glue compressor, and it's basically a different kind of compressor, but I mean the theory is basically all the same. You still got your attack time, your release time, even though here you got fixed positions, but yeah, the concept is still the same as before. Your ratio control, your threshold, your makeup gain, and yeah, of course the range of compressor of compression, the dry wet, to maybe even be able to do the parallel compressor, and I mean the soft clip, which is basically a limiter after the compressor, which is preventing you from distortions. So this, is basically yeah, it's still a compressor, but it's giving the sound another uh, kind of character. It's maybe sounding a little bit more analog, of course. So let's have a look how it sounds like. You can really hear how this glue compressor, especially on drums, like kick drums and loops of drums, it's basically giving a more pumping effect. It's giving a movement to the sound, right? If you hear closely. So yeah, definitely much more energy, much more movement in the yeah, in the sound, really. Oh, also one thing I was about to forget. In some compressor, you typically have three different modes, which are these three ones: peak, RMS, and expand. So what peak is, it's basically compressing based on the peaks of the sound, of the sound waveform. You can see here the peaks in the graph, right? And I mean, what instead RMS is doing is based on the perceived loudness of the sound, and It's basically adjusting the compression based on the RMS instead of the peak. So it really assumes a different way of compressing instead of the peak. So we can compare peak and RMS, how they sound like. And the expand is basically doing the opposite of compression, even though it's still compressing, but it's basically enhancing the sound. You know, it's basically raising up the volume without really clipping. It's acting more of a limiter, right, instead of a compressor. You can see here we got expansion, of course, instead of reduction. So yeah, that's basically it. And if you switch through here and you go expand, you can see this, instead of going down, you can see it going up. Yeah, that was it, really, guys. And I hope you liked this video, and I invite you to subscribe to this channel if you want to stay up to date with new videos like this. Also, like, comment if you have any doubts, or something that may still not be clear, or any further questions. I will be gladly answering your questions, and I will see you in the next video, guys. And Merry Christmas to everybody. Bye bye.